Well, college game day is in Miami right now for the Florida Gators at number 4 Miami Hurricanes, but it's not the only critical matchup inside the ACC this week.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy College Football Saturday, and shout out to the Everydayers. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs, former NC State defensive lineman and co-host of Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Donno, host of Locked On Canes, and today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. We're going to go through the ACC football schedule. You got some good games. You do have some of those, we call them squash matches out there, including, one for the Florida State Seminoles. But I think we can still learn a little bit about the Seminoles today. They've only played 2 games heading into this one. But Kenton Gibbs, let's start with the Florida Gators, who I would describe their current situation as desperation off of a 1-2 start, consecutive losses to USF and then LSU. They played okay against LSU, but a comedy of errors, 5 interceptions by DJ Lagway. They're in my neck of the woods today to take on the Miami Hurricanes, who have been absolutely rolling so far, Kenton. I mean, Miami has been dominating both lines of scrimmage. Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor on defense. Cece Mawinoa and Nez Cooper and company on the offensive line of scrimmage. Carson Beck has been playing so well. He's actually currently the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman Trophy at this very moment. I will, though, look at Florida tape from the last couple of weeks, and I have to admit that the Gators are a lot more talented than their results have indicated so far. But are they just running into a buzzsaw in South Florida tonight?
I don't think it's that they're running into – well, yes, they absolutely are running into a phenomenal Miami team. Let me start there.
Sure.
But I don't think that that's the biggest problem. The biggest problem that Florida has is a lack of coaching. They're extremely talented. Nobody is arguing whether or not Florida is more talented than USF. Nobody would argue that. But you know what's also clear? Golish came into that game with a game plan of this is how we're going to beat this team, as opposed to Florida, who seemed – like they were very, very adamant this is going to be a stat game for DJ Lagway. They had an extremely efficient running game early against USF, and they just abandoned it. They just said, hey, this thing that's moving the ball, what if we did the opposite of that? Ha-ha, this will be great for us. So I look at this situation as Miami has a very much so neck and neck, maybe a slight lead in terms of talent. But I think the biggest thing, which is surprising to say about Miami, which we know I have had one-on-one spats with the head man over there, verbally at least, of course, because, we're pacifist here at Locked On ACC. But their coaching is light years ahead of where Florida is, so much so that I would be surprised if Billy Napier makes the trip from Gainesville back or from Coral Gables back to Gainesville as a member of the Florida Gators football program.
An interesting thing on that, I've talked a lot this week from Brandon Olson, who hosts Locked On Gators. We did a crossover episode, Locked On Canes and Locked On Gators this week. Brandon brought up a good point to me, Kenton, that, this is Florida's 4th game of the year. And what would happen if they were to fire Billy Napier after their 4th game of the season? That gives every player on their roster the opportunity to preserve a redshirt year for this year. And then, of course, when your coach enters when your coach gets fired, you get a 30-day transfer portal window. So you're giving players on your roster an opportunity not only to immediately get into the transfer portal, but preserve this year of eligibility. So if Florida wants to kind of play up sort of the dirty side of the college football business, you keep Billy Napier around a little bit longer so players don't have the opportunity to burn that red shirt.
I'll tell you what, if Florida wants to do right by their players, get rid of Billy after this game. If it's not competitive. If it's competitive, I could at least see the argument for, hey, you've lost to 2 top 10 teams this year. We're not in the business of firing people for losing top 10 games, sure. But if this game is non-competitive, if this game is a domination by Miami, to me, I think that Florida should do what's right by their players and say, hey, go on, man. Go on. If you don't want to be here, we understand. We have made promises. The coaching staff has made promises to y'all. We have made the promises of we will return to the former greatness of Florida football. And on the basketball side, they've done that. They've returned to what Billy Donovan had them rolling at. They got a natty, and they're rolling in the right direction there. Football, we're tanking. This thing is going downhill in a hurry. So, not to spend too much time talking about the SEC side of things, but again, it just doesn't make sense. And like I said earlier in the week, if I'm spinning this from a Miami angle, I'm scouting everybody. Everybody that's on that field is getting scouted by me. I'm that guy's got a little get up and go there. Oh, that McClain kid seems to be trying very hard these days. Oh, all right. If you know, you know. But it's one of those things that they should be taking a very close look at a lot of those players because they can have the ability to keep a lot of them close to home while poaching some who are going to be available very soon.
Yeah, and for Miami versus Florida today, Hurricanes are favored by 7.5 or 8.5 points. The number's been kind of toggling through those. This is a game Miami should win. But again, if Florida decides to make this the game where they don't commit these self-destructive, self-inflicted errors that they've had every game so far, they're certainly capable, talent for talent, of keeping it close and giving themselves a chance to win. Obviously, Miami's operation has run a lot smoother than Florida's has to this point. I think some keys to the Hurricanes for me, Kenton, jumping out early, as Miami's done all season. They haven't trailed at any point so far in their first 3 games. So you'd like to see them continue that trend. And that's when you start to see, Florida has those battle scars from these previous couple of losses that may start to compound for them mentally. For Miami, they catch a little bit of a break for the Florida side because Caleb Banks, who's Florida's best defensive lineman, has a long-term injury. He's not going to play. They have a couple of other, not as significant defensive injuries. So Florida's defense is not going to be whole, where it sounds like Miami's offense is. And I think these are a couple of players they're going to kind of ease back in. But Jordan Lyle, who was actually Miami's starting running back to begin the season, and JoJo Trader, one of their best receivers, when healthy. Neither of them have played since the opening game. They got banged up against Notre Dame. They're expected to be back. So Miami might have extra reinforcements on their offense. For the defensive side of the football, I don't feel like Miami's defensive secondary has been consistently tested yet. Lagway likes to go deep, but at the same time, Miami's defensive line, Florida's offensive line is graded out well, Kenton, but their right side has been problematic in pass protection. They have given up 5 sacks in 3 games this year. Most of the pressure comes from the right side. Bain and Mesidor, who are going to move around, are going to try to exploit that today. So if Miami can force Lagway into taking sacks and making bad decisions, we see how that's gone for Florida the last couple weeks.
Oh, for sure. And I wanted to say one of the biggest problems with the Billy Napier-Lagway combination is the incessance to force the ball downfield when it's not necessary. Like the incessance of the big play or nothing, when in reality, sometimes, the quarterbacks from the 2010s showed us something very interesting with you never go broke by taking a profit, okay? You just take nickel and dime them, get where you got to go, keep moving the chains, and then all of a sudden you're in the end zone. You don't need a 50, 60-yarder. You don't need that, but somebody needs to convince Lagway in Florida of that because, again, I think that's the biggest problem, just that play calling and that play selection that is constantly focused on shots. Do you have the offensive line for that? Do you have the running game established in a way that makes sense to where defenses have to honor that, to where they say, oh, okay, we need to, we can't go too high anymore because when they run the ball the way that they do, we need that extra body in the box. And then you say, I got what I want now. I got single high. Now we can take that shot. Now it's looking a little better. So the reality of this game for me, it's going to come down to this. Which wins out? The desperation of Florida or the mojo, the swagger, the kind of, like you said, Miami is a well-oiled machine rolling down the tracks right now. which one is going to win out in this one. And like you said, getting out to a fast start is vitally important because that's what that desperate team wants to do. And that's how you put a desperate dog down. You take it out early. You don't let them get that hope and that thought of, we can beat we're playing with the Canes. We can beat them. Take them out early.
All right. Are you thinking of a final score for this one? Mine's a little bit of a meme, but I can see it happening because, for the past year, anytime Florida fans try to talk trash to Miami fans, Miami's comeback is 41-17, bro. That's what Miami beat Florida by last year. So this year, I'm going 42-16. I think it gets a little worse in Miami's favor, or a little better in Miami's favor, worse for Florida.
Yeah, no, I for sure see a similar blowout. I just don't see as many points being scored because I think Miami just takes their foot off the gas here. I get it. This is a slight rivalry and all that good stuff, but I think Miami takes their foot off the gas because they know this thing is going to be over early. I got 35-10.
Okay, that is similar. And by the way, just to be fair, Florida's defense so far this year has only given up 2 touchdowns on that side of the football. They had other touchdown they gave up was a pick 6, so you can't blame the defense for that one. So Florida's defense has produced good results. All right, so we got more games to talk about, including Clemson taking on Syracuse. We got Kenton's NC State Wolfpack taking on Duke. I wonder, because I remember a couple weeks ago, Kenton was thinking that could be an L for NC State. I'm thinking differently now. I want to get KG's take on it. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're only getting started on this game day episode of Locked On ACC. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds. They move culture. They keep moving the game forward. You know who moved the game forward last week? Georgia Tech quarterback Haynes King with over 300 total yards, got it done with more than 100 rushing yards, over 200 passing yards in a huge Georgia Tech home victory against Clemson. They stormed the field afterwards in Atlanta. They got fined for that, but it was a great scene there on campus. And what a season Haynes King is having so far. Guys, when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. We're also proudly brought to you by Wayfair. The weather's starting to cool down. The days are getting shorter, and that has me wanting to make my home feel even cozier. And when it comes to cozifying your space this fall, Wayfair is the place to go. Wayfair has everything you need to set the mood for the season, whether it's comfy recliners, warm bedding, autumn decor, even an espresso machine. You can make your favorite latte at home. Folks, I love how when you order from Wayfair, the delivery is fast, free, and hassle-free, which makes a huge difference when you're refreshing your home. I love the variety as well. Wayfair has options for every style and every budget, so you don't have to compromise. Cozify your space with Wayfair's curated selection of easy, affordable fall updates. From comfy recliners to cozy bedding and autumn decor, you'll find it all for way less at wayfair.com. That's Wayfair.com. Wayfair. Every style, every home. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. All right, so Kenton, Duke is coming off of 2 consecutive losses. They had the Darian Mensah Bowl last week. They took Tulane's quarterback, and they still lost to Tulane a week ago. They got beat up, just a turnover disaster against Illinois the week prior. Duke lost the turnover margin -5, so they lost the game big. Are you still? Because I'm getting a little shaky with my Duke Blue Devil stock. I started selling that off last week, whereas NC State has been a team on the rise. They're showing character. They're winning games in comeback fashion. You've got yourself one of the most phenomenal young quarterbacks in the country in CJ Bailey. I mean, I know that a couple weeks ago you were kind of penciling in that Duke game as a loss. Do you feel differently for the Wolfpack?
I absolutely feel differently for the Wolfpack because of multiple factors here. It's not just the Wolfpack's play. It's also been Duke's play. This feels like one of those very bad, no good, snake-bitten years for them. What do I mean by that? We look at Manny Diaz as a guy that's going to stop the run on early downs. Defensively, he's going to stop the run on early downs, and then he's going to get into those wonky blitzes. He's going to get into those disguise packages where, oh, yeah, I know that's cover 4. That's for sure cover 4. Haha, I got you. We're playing man 1. That's the type of guy he is. You never really see what's happening. It's, oh, man, I know that looks like 3 high. I know that's 3 high. LOL, this is 2, Robert. And next thing you know, your quarterback is saying, wait, that corner is beating 1, and the safety is coming over the top to take the ball away. Here's the problem. They have had problems with doing every game. It's been something new that they've had a problem with, right? Against Elon, tied at halftime, 10-10.
Yeah.
That's a little worrisome. Against Illinois, you play a very good game offensively. You play an extremely good game offensively, but you turn the ball over again and again and again and again and again. And then you go down to Tulane and you say, you know what? Summerall has a really good defense, but offensively, there are some question marks. Their quarterback got there on July 21st, approximately 14 days before camp started. So I know that I used to joke all the time about, hey, you've probably thrown as many passes to your receiver, to Miami receivers, as Carson Beck, but that is factually, it's impossible that Retzlaff beat that because he just got there. And so you see him and that offense run all over Duke. It was like they looked like they'd never seen the read option before. Their defense looked like they were going to go up to the ref. Is it legal for him to fake it like he's giving it to the back and pull it? Is it legal? Is that a strategy they can employ? So I think this feels like a one of those years for them where everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And with that in mind, seeing the way that CJ Bailey and company have been absolutely rolling on offense, seeing the way that NC State's defense has been exactly what I said, a bad defense or a defense that was not very good needs to be opportunistic. Just have those couple plays a game where you turn the tide in a major way. Nobody's expecting shutouts. Nobody's expecting the 85 Bears. Just be opportunistic. NC State's shown that in virtually every game, especially the last 2, with a game-sealing interception against UVA and with a thick 6 that turned the tide in the Wake Forest game. So I think the opportunistic nature of NC State's defense combined with the snake-bitten nature of what Duke has going on spells out victory for the Wolfpack.
You know, and Duke at home, they're favored by 3.5 points. If I can borrow a phrase from our friend Lee Sterling from Locked On Bets, wrong team favored. I think NC State should be favored even on the road. I'm going with the Wolfpack. I'm going to say 27-20. NC State gets it done in Durham.
I'm with it. I you know what's funny? My score was very similar to that. Me and you are very much on the same page. I got 27-24. I got NC State winning a very close one because I think that NC State's defense has shown they can play great for a half. They haven't put together a full game yet. And I think that Darian Mintz is going to lead a fantastic comeback charge, and they fall just short.
All right, so another game I know is going to be of great interest to you. This is another test for Bill Belichick's North Carolina Tar Heels, who they failed their first test miserably, getting blown out by TCU week 1, 48-14, and since then, North Carolina's not played anybody. They beat Charlotte 20-3. They beat the Richmond Spiders 41-6, and now they're going to play in Orlando against UCF. And UCF is, I didn't know which way the odds makers would go with this game, but UCF is favored by practically a touchdown at home, -6.5. And here's the thing, like Kenton, I think that line with UCF being favored by a touchdown, essentially, I think that's more about who they think North Carolina is than about who they think UCF is, because I have no idea who the UCF Knights are. Their first 2 games have been against Jacksonville State, 17-10 win, and North Carolina A&T, a 68-7 win. And NC State's, original starting quarterback, Cam Fancher, has barely played. He got injured in that first game. UCF comes off a bye week, and I think Fancher's going to be available, but they're not sure if they're going to go with Taven Jackson, who's played most of the snaps so far, if they're going to put Fancher back in there. Again, UCF hasn't really played anybody of note to this point. And so, I kind of look at these teams as having similar questions, but the fact that North Carolina, who probably has more talent than UCF, is a touchdown underdog, I think tells you who the betting public thinks North Carolina is.
Absolutely. But Donno, this game ain't of interest to me because at this point it would be bullying if I was still looking at the UNC football program closely, saying, what are they going to be? You know, Dono, at that point, I feel like I would need to go to an anti-bullying seminar at a middle school where they say, hurt people hurt people. And whatever you're going through at home doesn't give you the right to take it out on Bill Belichick and his players that are younger than his girlfriend. I mean, this team that has a lot of transfers. So, you know, I very seriously look at this game and I say, you are looking at two teams that have not had any games against real competition. And when one of them was tasked to you know, play some real competition, that wasn't a game. That was a slaughter. That was a massacre that just happened to occur in you know, in what is it? What's their field name? Kenan? Yeah, in Kenan Stadium. We call it Carter Finley West here, so we really don't have too much of an idea. But in Kenan, you know, it was very clear that they were outgunned by a mile and that they were underprepared as well. One thing that I really am genuinely worried about, not even from a joking standpoint, that Bill Belichick has fielded a deeply, and when I say deeply, I mean deeply inexperienced staff overall. And so the question becomes, at what point does that not bite you in the behind? At what point does that coaching staff kind of grow up and mature and put the players in position to succeed? I'm not sure if game 2 against a Power 4 program is quite the one, even though I don't think either team is particularly, you know, brolic in terms of talent over the other. I just think that UCF has a coaching staff that has guys that know what they're doing at a higher level than a bunch of guys where you're looking at them saying, hey, is this his first coaching job ever? And he's a position coach at a Power 4 school? So, you know.
I feel like picking this game is, I mean, just disclaimer. I could go either way on this one, but I locked on ACC, Kenton. I'm going to give the edge to UNC. I'm going to go North Carolina 28-27. I'm going to have it as a 1-point thriller in this one. Do you want to make a pick?
Dono, I don't believe that your son knows his ABCs quite right. I think he knows the letters, but he don't know his ABCs. You know what ABCs are, Dono?
What is that?
Anybody but Carolina. Give me
UCF.
24-14 over the Tar Heels. I know it hurts the conference, and it hurts me to hurt the conference, but if it hurts to hit, I'm joking. I seriously think that UCF takes this one because, again, I just think that the coaching staff that's more experienced and players who have more continuity than 70 transfers in 1 year, I don't think that works out well, and I don't think it starts working out well today.
All right, I want to take a look at Syracuse at Clemson when we come back. And I think my big question there is going to be Clemson favored by 17.5 with the start that they've had to the year. Is that number way too big? You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this game day episode of Locked On ACC. Friends, this episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades, these are the places that bring people together. When the neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Guys, I love when the food trucks come together in my neighborhood. Me and my son go crazy with those food trucks, and they're all running on Square. Guys, it's, you know, spending money there doesn't just support that business. It supports the people behind it and the community around it. Those local spots are what make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your local neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. All right, my friends, the weekend is here, and it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. Well, I mean, for the Miami Hurricanes last week, it was Carson Beck. 3 passing touchdowns, a rushing touchdown in that win against South Florida. Beck delivered in a big, big way. No hesitation, no delay. And if you've been watching week after week, Carson Beck, he's been on a streak. He's currently the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy at this moment. And just like Beck delivered for Miami, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period runs through November 18th. Thank you for making Locked On ACC your first listen. All right, so Kenton, obviously, Syracuse's last game was against a cupcake, a stat padding game against Colgate, and they put up 66 points in that game. And Syracuse's offense, has looked very good. Steve Angeli is currently the nation's leader in passing yards, or at least he was before the Thursday and Friday night games. But through 3 weeks, Steve Angeli was the nation's leader in passing. He's kind of doing what Kyle McCord did last year, but there are a lot of questions about Syracuse's defense, Kenton. When they opened up against Tennessee, there were a lot of holes. In the UConn game, they won in overtime. There were issues. But then on the flip side, the Clemson Tigers have not looked nearly as physical as we thought that they would at the line of scrimmage. And Cade Klubnik, he, 3 games in, seems to have regressed to the Klubnik of 2 years ago when we had a lot of questions, not the Klubnik of 2024, who was one of the best quarterbacks in college football. So, Kenton, I can understand, especially at home, Death Valley, I can understand why Clemson would be favored, right? Even despite the 1-2 record. I would have thought this would be like a, 10.5 point spread, something like that. Clemson Tigers are favored by 17.5 points against Syracuse. Do they cover that spread today?
They absolutely cover that spread, and let me tell you why. Other than Clemson's inability to pass the ball at a high level and their inability to stop the run at a high level, I think that they'll be just fine. The problem with those things is you cannot count on that running game to show up every single time against every single defense, with all due respect. I don't think that it showed itself in any meaningful way against LSU, but I know the Tigers aren't walking through that door. It didn't show up against Troy in the first half. I mean, I don't really know what we have going on there. And then against Georgia Tech, it showed up late. The thing is, I think that this is a Tiger team that's entitled. They're playing like a Tiger team. They're playing like they believe that they're going to beat you all just because, you're going to show up and roll over. And that's so problematic. The reality is defense is alignment, assignment, and effort. That's it. When you know where you're supposed to be aligned and you know what your assignment is, you go out there and execute it with maximum effort and everything will be okay. It does not seem like the Clemson Tigers have it in their hearts and in their minds right now that we have to earn every single win that comes our way. And that's why that team finds themselves at 1-2. That's why that team finds themselves from Heisman darling quarterback, ACC Defensive Player of the Year preseason, ACC Player of the Year preseason, to now being a team where people are asking, hey, are they going to take care of Syracuse at home? Yeah. This is the reality is Fran Brown and that team are not going to be afraid and they're not going to be timid. And I know that, at the end of the day, if they punch Clemson in the mouth, they've got a much better shot than saying, oh, we'll take Clemson's best shot and keep clawing back. If they get up on Clemson early, that does not seem like a team that has the mental fortitude to stay in the fight and do what needs to be done. That seems like a team that this year may pack it up and fold it in.
So you have a prediction? Give me a score.
So I do have Clemson winning this game because I don't think Syracuse has the firepower to take it to them out of the gate. Right. But I don't think that Clemson takes care of them easily. In this one, I've got 31-28 Clemson.
We're so close again. 34-27 Clemson is what I'm going with. And
Me and Donno did not talk about our scores before this episode.
No, we didn't.
We honestly.
Don't do that. So. And by the way, I've not been doing that great with my score predictions so far. Like the one that I had Miami beating Notre Dame by 3 points, and I felt like Nostradamus after that one. But the rest of the way I've been a little off. But I feel pretty good about my 34-27 Clemson in this one. I also want to mention Kenton. I mean, Florida State is playing another cadaver this week. They're hosting Kent State, but I will say that Brian Smith made a great point with us. And obviously Florida State, they have a signature win already this year. They just completely dominated Alabama week 1. That was the top 10 win. Bama was number 8 in that one. Florida State played East Texas A&M bye week. Now they play Kent State. But honestly, and I know again their second game was against East Texas A&M, but they rolled over. They put up 77 points on East Texas A&M to show you that this Florida State team, even against, you know, the cupcakes of the world, are still going to show up and they're still going to dominate. They're not going to have a letdown. So, you know, it's still like, depending on what they do against Kent State today, you know, it's not that this is going to decide, hey, Florida State should be number one or anything like that. But, you know, if they professionally take care of another lesser opponent, I think Florida State is favored in this one by 44.5 points. You know, they may go out there and cover that spread, Kenton. So I think we'll see how intense this team is.
Even if Kent State goes undefeated for the rest of the year, they still, I believe it's either them or Akron. I want to say it's Kent State that's ineligible to play in the bowl because of their academic standing. Again, it's either them or Akron. I want to be 100% sure. I'm not sure if that's Kent State, but either way you cut or slice it, Kent State has not been a good program. That has not been a good program in the MAC that's shown up and dominated every year. I don't know why anybody would want to pick this game or pick Kent State in this game other than the fact that that's 44.5 is a lot of points. That's the only reason that somebody might want to roll with Kent State.
It's Akron, by the way.
Okay, I knew it was one of the two. So apologies to Kent State there. I still don't think that this is a program that is a serious program right now, with all due respect. I just don't think that they're the type of program that can hang in a game like this. And even against last year's Florida State, I think Florida State would take care of Kent State fairly easily. So I don't think that this is going to be a problem for Florida State.
I got one more thing to say before we wrap up this game day episode, and that is thank you to JKS at Cal, their star young quarterback, for giving me a reason to enjoy staying up until 2 a.m. Like I'm being dead serious here, because Kent and I do post game on the radio for Miami Hurricanes football games, and since they keep playing night games, which means I do post game until 2 in the morning, and the TV in the background in the studio is usually on the Cal Golden Bears, and I'm watching Jaren Keave Sangapulatele out there slinging it as a true freshman. You know, we used to love Pac-12 After Dark. Now we got ACC After Dark. And JKS, he's this year's Eli Holstein, probably better. You know, because remember, Holstein for like the first half of the season won ACC Rookie of the Week every single week. That's what JKS is doing. They're playing against San Diego State late night tonight at 10:30. Cal's favored by 14.5 points. I expect Cal to improve to 4-0 tonight. And I don't mind staying up late if I get to watch JKS.
So fun fact, Donno, I'm in ACC country right now. I'm in San Francisco. You know, I work for the best coffee business in the game, but that's another story for another time. I'm out here in California right now, and I can tell you something. The reality of this thing is, who wouldn't want to be a part of the Cal Rhythm right now? The vibes are high. They're rolling high. The offense is clicking at a high level. Defense is showing up like you would expect a Wilcox coach defense to do. Everything is going great for the Cal Bears right now. And I'm going to tell you something. Even Stanford, the luck is rubbing off on their biggest rival, not going defeated and beating Bill O'Brien.
Oh, that
what
was
a
beautiful.
time for me.
And that was another. That's the one I was watching until 2 a.m. last week. And then Boston College, they looked like they were literally asleep. Like they were more tired than I was watching that game till 2 in the morning.
What a surprise. The Bill O'Brien coach team gave a big letdown, gave a stinker. I'm shocked, Donno. This is my shock face. That's my shock face.
Oh, man. Well, we appreciate everybody for making Locked On ACC your first listen. Enjoy your college football Saturday today. A lot of important and even like some of the not as important ACC games. Again, we're going to see if Florida State continues to roll. Georgia Tech has an easier game today. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, subscribe to Locked On ACC. Check Kenton out on Locked On Wolfpack and at TGIF_Kenton on X. Follow me on X at ALEX DONNO and on Locked On Canes. And we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.